Hello and welcome to the FF News Virtual Arena. I'm your host, Doug McKenzie, and on today's very exciting episode, we're going to be looking at how organizations, large and small, can offer a superior e-commerce experience. And I feel like the financial institutions around the world are starting to really look at the way that retailers, for instance, are starting to embrace financial services. And joining me here today, I have three guys right at the heart of that topic. First up, we have Alex Page from FIS. Alex, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yeah, very good.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining here. I think it's your first time on the show, so I just want to say a big thanks. And also, Alex, could you tell our audience a bit more about yourself, your role at FIS, and what you guys do?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I work at FIS heading up the solution consulting function within our payments division. So that essentially means we spend most of our days helping our customers and merchants to understand their challenges within the payments arena, solve problems for them, and hopefully help them run their businesses as efficiently as possible.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think we're going to really understand that merchant side of things a bit more from today's conversation. So thank you for joining. And also joining us, we have Kurt Schmid from Netcetera. Kurt, how are you doing too?
Thank you, Tom. I'm perfectly fine. Looking forward to our session here. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. Now, Kurt, could you also tell us a bit more about Netcetera, please, and your role in that?
Yes. So Netcetera is a company that is focusing on digital payments, both covering the issuer side and the merchant side. I think this bridge and this knowledge on both sides is very important. We are a member at EMVCo, where the main card standards are also developed. And we have a very important anchor shareholder. This is G&D, and we cooperate closely with Giesecke+Devrient on digital payment topics. And my role in Netcetera is I'm looking into marketing and innovation in our secure digital payments division.
Yeah, I feel like payments really have been such a vehicle for a lot of the change that we're going to be discussing here today. And also joining us, we have Alex Gatiragas from G&D Digital Solutions. Alex, how are you doing here today?
I'm great. I'm getting used to the Finnish winter. It's actually my second winter here in Finland.
Oh, wow.
Originally from the G&D office in Australia, but moved to G&D Helsinki about a year and a half ago.
So, incredible. Certainly different climates then.
Most definitely.
Brilliant. So, Alex, could you also tell us a bit more about G&D, please?
Yeah, definitely. So G&D is actually a long-standing pay tech company, 170 plus years old. So we started, or one of our major business lines is still working with central banks around physical cash. So not only the production of the paper that's used to make the physical cash, but also the security elements out of it. That's now evolving into CBDCs, which is a kind of interesting place. My area is more focused on digital payments, and we work with a lot of issuers across the globe. That's probably been the majority of our history. And a little bit like Kurt said, we've also transitioned over to the acquiring side, or the merchant and PSP side, where we're supporting things like tokenisation in that space.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of that tokenization element, because as someone that tends to shop quite a bit online, some of those use cases are very, very exciting. Sure. Now, guys, I almost hate to start a conversation where we talk about COVID, but I have a feeling when we talk about e-commerce, it's certainly played a small role. So Alex Gatiragas, can I come to you and say, COVID obviously did have a huge upside when it comes to e-commerce interest, both from the merchants and the consumers. But beyond that, what contributed to being the dominant way to shop?
Well, there's no doubt COVID laid the foundation. There was investments made by a lot of merchants to be able to have their customers shop online. There is no doubt the consumers felt comfortable with shopping online as well, with various mechanisms, including click and collect, which I personally use quite extensively. But beyond the COVID, I think it's just a potentially generational change. I mean, it's just people are a lot more comfortable with the online commerce or the online shopping. More willing to actually do a lot of the shopping beyond just the traditional household goods, but could be also things like your grocery shopping. So what we're seeing is that even things like grocery shopping tends to be something that people have kept doing even beyond COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's that generational change, people being a lot more comfortable with mobile devices and having the trust in the systems, I guess, and the merchants to be able to shop online.
I think it is a really interesting perspective how suddenly payments, which have typically just been provided and no one thinks about them, have become this consumer kind of thought process. You know, suddenly older generations, younger generations are all coming together and realizing, actually, this is how I want to pay, and deciding that the way they do it is causing merchants to change. Kurt, could I also get your perspective as well? You know, do you agree with Alex G on that? You know, do you think that?
I fully agree, but I want to add some two more points.
Please.
So I think there is more choice shopping online. You know, if you need something dedicated, something special, if you run to a normal physical shop and then it's whatever it's out, it's sold, etc. So, and then you don't find the right thing. So online you basically find everything you need, and then you can have good reviews, etc. So it's really convenient. And then, well, if people are acquainted with all these processes, you know, I do have friends, me personally not yet, but they are purchasing commodities online. So they're purchasing their toilet paper in e-commerce because it's so convenient, you know.
Yeah.
So, and when you then experience this convenience, you return and do this over and again. So this is the fact that there is a really rich offering online and this convenience. So partially you want to go to a shop to have shopping convenience, but if you buy something where the experience is, you know, if you buy the toilet paper, wow, it's not that fantastic experience, you know. Then you can go online, and then it's even simpler and more convenient for you.
Yeah, and I think that's really fascinating to think that soon all those household chores, because of how easy payments have become, will be a thing of the past. And you won't be stuck without toilet paper like a lot of people were in 2020. And also, so Alex Page, could I come to you then? And we've had Alex and Kurt discuss the kind of consumer perspective. I'd like to also maybe get some of your insights there, but also could we ask, what does the merchant want from this e-commerce experience that they offer? You know, as Kurt mentioned, soon people are going to be able to get just micro, household items sent to them, paid to them. What does that mean for the merchant?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of credit in the shift from in-store transacting to online actually should go to the merchants and technology suppliers that have facilitated them.
Yeah.
We've gone to the position where the customer experience online now is incredibly straightforward and simple, and that goes through simple things like navigating the website, but also delivery options and the breadth of payment options that are available to consumers. I think for merchants, really, their focus is around trying to secure every customer possible once they reach the website, right? There's probably a huge amount of investment and money and marketing, brand awareness to get consumers onto your website in the first place. And once you've got them, it's around trying to secure that and ultimately sell your product at the end of that journey. So optimizing the checkout, reducing the number of clicks, and ultimately offering the payment experience to consumers that they're after, with a global reach, tapping into local trends, local payment methods, and hopefully when the customer hits pay on that payment journey, it's completed and it's
nice and easy.
The money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it must be such an intense market or ecosystem out there where you've got all those merchants providing the same product with very similar prices. So would Alex Page, if I follow on from that, would you say that effectively that the payment experience has effectively become the dominant customer differentiator from who they buy with then?
Yeah, absolutely. It has a huge factor on that. I mean, there are other components. So I guess the delivery facilitation of orders are important, but at the end of the day, if I'm a consumer, I go to somebody's website and I'm not comfortable with the payment experience that's being offered, or maybe it's a payment method I don't trust as a consumer, then that's probably going to act as a very big barrier to me going ahead and clicking with that merchant, when, as you said, there is a whole myriad of probably other providers that can offer the same products and good experience at a similar price.
Yeah. Now, Alex Gatiragas, you mentioned obviously payment tokenization as well, and I think maybe the typical consumer won't know what that is. Right. So, is that something that the end consumer will want from their e-commerce experience going forward?
The reality is, in most use cases, tokenization is invisible to the consumer. It's doing its job protecting their card credentials.
Sure.
What used to be card on file, stored details such as your primary account number and so forth. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there are some great features that tokenization does bring to the consumer as well, and some of those include the ability to not have to update your payment credentials at a merchant if your card expires or if you report it as lost or stolen. So that happens automatically in the background.
Incredible.
Nothing worse than going through a shopping experience online, going to the checkout and finding out that it says your card details have expired.
Yeah.
So we've obviously worked with the industry and delivered tokenization or network tokenization solutions that support that. But there's also little subtle things which gives consumers confidence, things like being able to provide the card artwork of their either digital or physical card. So that sort of gives them confidence that they're using the appropriate card when they're paying. Little things like that are a little bit more visible to consumers. They don't know it's tokenization, but I'm pretty sure it helps with the checkout experience.
I'm sure it does. I mean, yeah, there's been so many times where I've forgotten which card is which, and then having to swap them out must be such a pain. So then, Kurt, if I could come to you then, we've been talking about these end consumer experiences. Alex Page brought up as well what's happening with the merchant. Alex G brought up what was happening with the payment behind the scenes, but I want to explore that a bit further. And behind the scenes, how can we as an industry, the payments industry and also the e-commerce industry, create these experiences? What is the journey that needs to happen where, for instance, payment tokenization and just becomes commonplace effectively?
I think important of the journey is that it's consistent for the user and understandable. So I think the user on this payment journey wants to have a process that he understands, that he feels he's in control. So if nothing is happening that he feels, what is this now? Consistency is very important. If you have a trained process on this checkout and then you can repeat this, I think this is important. And for me, one of the pains in these payment processes today is if you get redirected to other devices. So if you shop on your tablet, but then you need to do an out-of-band authentication on your mobile phone, etc. So this is then where people, whenever they are shopping on a device, but they don't have the device for the authentication at hand. So this is then when the process breaks and this redirects, and then you need to redirect back then from this issue page where you do the challenge back to the merchant page. I think there is improvements in this, but ultimately we should not redirect the consumer back and forth. So that is for me something that is important on this user journey. And then maybe when we come to this later, I think there is really now upcoming technologies on improving the situation.
Yeah. And I think that you've kind of brought up this element of friction. And I know obviously we've had a multi-factor authentication come in, and the thought of having to if you want to buy something really quickly, maybe it's a guilty pleasure purchase, and you're like, oh, okay, and you want to make that payment, and then suddenly you have to go and find a different your laptop or something like that. That friction is going to change the way that people look at online payments, and probably disrupt a lot of the changes that have happened before. So Alex Gatiragas, with that in mind, how do you find that balance? How can we still create these experiences while also maintaining that convenience and security?
And this is where I guess there's some technology at play here.
Right.
There's certain technologies and also certain payment mechanisms that the traditional card networks are also providing. Yeah. One of them that is getting a fair bit of attention at the moment is click to pay.
Okay.
And that's the ability to have your payment card entered into a click to pay payment option, if you like, and that facilitates, I guess, the quick, easy checkout, particularly for guest checkout. So if you've gone to an e-commerce site and it's maybe not the one that you normally would shop at, and rather than being nagged about signing up an account and storing your card details and so forth, you'll start to see a click to pay checkout option, and that will be authorized in pretty much a single click. So 1 or 2 clicks, you'll be authorized to have that payment go through. So yeah, removing that friction is important, but at the same time, we can't compromise on security. You want to ensure that your customers, know that their payments are going through securely, and there's no way that their payment credentials are going to be compromised.
Yeah, it's this really interesting, and I imagine it comes down a lot to individual tolerance levels, which makes it harder for merchants and payment providers to find that tolerance level per customer, because you can't just tar everyone the same brush. Some people might be accepting of sending payments, for instance, in 1 click. Some people may be in a couple. So Alex Page, then, with that in mind as well, this also comes back to the merchant as well. The merchant doesn't want a fraudulent payment either. So what is the trade-off there between convenience and security too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of the hottest topics that we have with our merchants when we're speaking to them about optimizing their payment journeys. Ultimately, if you're building the slickest, most convenient checkout journey in the world, but you have a fraud issue, then your business is going to be shut down very quickly. So it's a case of towing that very fine line of trying to implement security and fraud management solutions while not impacting the customer journey. And I think the closest that we can see as a perfect solution to that is around real-time fraud monitoring. So capturing data around the customer or prospective customers, using real-time decisioning on that data to say, is this a good actor or potentially a bad actor? And therefore making the decision on whether you're accepting that order or not.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I've also seen like a few kind of exceptions to that standard journey that you'd see as well. So there's a very high-end luxury retailer that we work with here in the UK.
Yeah.
And they actually have a VIP channel. So with this, they're incredibly high net worth individuals, probably on the Forbes 100 list.
Oh,
and
wow.
A shopping trip for them is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And for them, when they're managing these customers, it's a case of just removing all of the security elements that you might normally have in place, because
incredible.
They know that these individuals are going to spend a huge amount of money. They want the ultimate best customer experience for them, and that's the decision they take. There's minimal risk.
Yeah. So with that in mind, then, Alex Page, is the technology that we've kind of been simmering away at, is it stuff like looking at geography, where the payment is happening? I mean, Alex G was mentioning the fact that we were you were looking at potential retailers that you already pay at. What are the technologies that can get to this point where we can offer that granular bespoke security levels for end customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there are a myriad of different tools that you can use at your disposal. So you've got real-time fraud checking solutions. Potentially, you could route higher risk customers down more stringent authentication routes.
Yeah.
And if there are scenarios where you have a high level of trust with the customer, potentially using exemptions and bearing additional risk and responsibility for you as the merchant. So it's really a case of building awareness about the payments industry, understanding the different tools and levers that you have at your disposal, and relying on experts to guide you and find that most optimal journey and decisioning that you've got across the organization.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like such a task because the technology and the payments culture and the customer demands are changing so rapidly. So Kurt, could I also get your perspective as well? Because I think, you guys at Netcetera look at that, the issuing, the acquiring side, how can, following off from what Alex Page was saying, how do we get to that, the kind of like granular bespoke security, but also enhanced convenience, nirvana, I want to say.
Yeah, happy to explain this, Doug. I explained before that consistency in the process is very important for me. And to remove friction, PSD2 has so to say implemented in the strong customer authentication these exemptions. Yeah. So whenever you feel that the risk of a customer is not very high, then you would exempt the transaction and not ask the customer to be challenged and to be authenticated. Yeah. So the problem with that is, I think this is working to some extent. The problem with that is it doesn't bring the complete, so to say, consistent user experience, because at some time the user says, okay, now I need to do something. At some points it is a smooth process and just without any authentication. And I think a good solution would be this, that if we can make the authentication that easy and that convenient and do it always, then we have a consistent process. For sure, we would have a bit more friction, but if we remove this friction to a minimum, I think that would be a good way forward. And speaking to this, I would like to mention secure payment confirmation. And secure payment confirmation is an upcoming development on this. And what it does, it's basically inside a device or a browser, for example, where you shop, the ability that the merchant initiates this authentication. The issuer validates this, but it will be used on existing biometric technologies the user is already used to. So underneath this secure payment confirmation is FIDO technology. And for example, if you log onto your computer or if you do Face ID, this is totally convenient. You do this many times, typically a day.
Yeah.
And then if you use this same authentication also for the payment authentication, it delivers almost no friction. It's a trained use process. So for me, giving one example, we were looking to authentication success rates. We are a large provider of 3DS services. We do this for a lot of issuing banks. And the highest success rates in conversion we have with an issuer that uses the process and in an easy and understandable authentication process in banking and in payments. And he's challenging everything. So if you buy a very small amount, he's challenged. It delivers consistency, but it's trained and it's easy, it's secure. And this is a perfect then experience that is really delivering all the security we want. So exemptions, risk rating is one element, but let's try as an industry to remove barriers and make authentication as easy as possible so people use it frequently.
Yeah, it should reward the customer effectively, because that way it benefits the whole ecosystem. And that's a really interesting way to look at it and to tackle it. I mean, I've just come off a security podcast yesterday where we were looking at how on an internal side of things, if you find a security flaw, that's a positive. And we need to educate customers and also employees of how that changes. And I think it's going to be the same thing with fraud. So that's very exciting. So Alex Gatiragas, I've actually got to ask you quite a big question here, and I'm really sorry, but we've been simmering away at kind of some of the use cases that payment tokenization is going to enable merchants and consumers currently. But what is having that in the payment ecosystem going to mean in the future?
Okay, I might start with the issuing end, seeing that we have a lot of contact with issuing banks around tokenization. One of the areas that a lot of issuers are looking at the moment is the self-service of tokens, provisioning of tokens, if you like, into merchants.
Yeah.
So a typical user journey might be they apply for an account, they get their debit card, they push it into their favourite XPay wallet, but also at the same time being given an opportunity to push it into their favourite merchant as well. So that saves the double handling, if you like, of having to go to the merchant and update their card details with their new card and so forth.
Yeah.
On the merchant side itself, again, I think I said earlier, tokenisation's been one of those things that's been invisible in the background for consumers. We're going to continue to see the growth of network tokenisation. A lot of merchants and payment service providers are interested in that. And the other thing that's somewhat related to tokenisation itself is alternate payment methods as well. So not only paying with your cards, but we know about buy now, pay later and what impact that's had on the industry,
right,
particularly for online purchases. Things like direct account payments and so forth.
Yeah.
One area that I think is also worth mentioning and we're paying very close attention to, particularly working with payment service providers, is the whole sustainability aspect through the checkout process. So G&D and Netcetera have some great relationships with the likes of Economy and Patch, if you know those two organisations. One provides insights into the environmental impact of your goods that you're purchasing, and Patch allows you to actually take action on that by removing carbon or whatever it might be.
That's incredible.
And we're looking at what that might mean for the checkout experience, without any additional friction, but also being conscious that today's consumer wants to also make sure that they're not harming the planet as they go through their purchasing.
That's so fascinating. It is weird that we can now actually, what has something been before, probably, payments have always just been an element of friction. Oh, I've got to get my money, then pay the person, and work out change, then card payments, always been a faff. Now we're seeing customer demands and then actual use cases built onto the top of that without adding any friction. I think is absolutely amazing. Now, we can't discuss payments without looking at the card networks. And Alex Page, can I come to you and ask, what role will the bank card play and maybe the card networks play in this digital shopping world going forward?
Yeah, of course. I wish I had a crystal ball that could look forward into the future and answer that specifically. I think what we're seeing at the moment is quite a lot of disruption within the payments ecosystem and new emerging methods that are challenging the card schemes and the card networks. We've obviously seen some regulation that's come into the industry to try and facilitate more account to account or open banking style payments. And I think for me, this is an area that I really want to watch closely over the coming years. There's still a bit of work that needs to be done as far as I'm concerned to try and get to parity on consumer experience from an open banking checkout. There's also a few questions around chargebacks and disputes and how that would mirror into the banking environment. But I think it is an area that it's had quite a lot of investment. There are substantial growth figures of open banking payments, and the schemes will undoubtedly want to react to that and do their best to protect their businesses going forwards. I think if we were to fast forward 20 years, we'll still have the card schemes around. They'll still be processing a lot of transactions, but we're going to see more of a proliferation and more challenge coming into their environment.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we're certainly seeing them move into certain other areas that, for instance, as you mentioned, open banking payments as well. And it's going to be quite interesting to see. And also, Kurt, could I get your perspective on this as well, please?
I agree fully with what Alex has said. I believe PSD3 will try to regulate more on also instant payments. For sure, we need to look to markets. There are some markets, whatever, Brazil, India, where real-time payments are very dominant and the card network are not that strong. So it's depending where instant payments and card payments play a role. Let's say here in Europe, we are mainly card payments with different levels of how this is used. Alex mentioned it. It has several advantages. So it's this reversal, is this dispute management. But for me, it's also if you have a card, I think you have also this physical object. You can use this in the store. So it's a used payment method. You have it then digitally on your phone, watch, or whatsoever. So this international acceptance is very nice. So let's look what account-to-account payments could bring in the future. What we need more is really, we need not only a transfer of money from A to B, but we need then really a scheme behind this or above this. And yes, there are developments on this. So I believe there will be new options and new ways, also person-to-person payments. But I also tend to what Alex was mentioning, in the future, in the next 10, 20 years, we will see still in the markets where cards are playing a dominant role today, they will also continue to play a dominant role in the future.
Yeah. And I guess to wrap as well, Alex Gatiragas, I imagine you guys at G&D probably have quite a good insight to that as well, right?
Yes, most definitely. Reality is consumers recognise the brands for the card networks, and I think, as was said, we'll continue to see those card networks grow. I mean, we're certainly seeing it on the issuing side. So the cards are still growing through our issuers. So I expect that's going to continue in being maybe a preferred way of paying for many. The other thing to remember as well is that for some of these alternate payment methods, the primary funding instrument might still be a card. So not necessarily account to account, but certainly for some of the other payment methods, your funding instrument might be your debit card, for example. So I think there's still some relevance there for them.
Absolutely amazing. Guys, we've come to time, but it's been absolutely amazing getting your insights into the future and also really the groundwork as to what has led us here. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your guys' perspectives. And also I want to say a massive thank you as well to our viewers as well. You can catch the rest of the series and so much more over at FF News and of course YouTube, but especially LinkedIn, where I'm sure you'll see Alex and Kurt and myself in the comments. Guys, thank you so much and goodbye.